Good morning, everyone. This is Sibbe Bladh. Sometimes you hear people say things in line with, "There is no God. If there was a God, how could he be so wicked to let all this evil happen to us and happen to the world?" And one have to know that world is duality. There's two entities. One is the physical, the worldly entity, and one is the divine, eternal entity. And one grows through the other. Spirit grow through the world, through the system, and continue. It's like they say, the wickedness live in the flesh. The pleasure, the cravings of the body, of the ego, that's evil. The number 666 is the number of carbon. All materia in the world is carbon based, meaning that the number of the beast is the physical, it's the flesh, and in the flesh the evil entity rules. In the ego the evil entity rules. I will read you something. Rex Mundi is Latin for king of the world. To the Cathars, Rex Mundi was the false god, the chaotic god of material things, the demiurge, and the embodiment of evil. The true God was one of spirituality, peace and love, who created the heavens. Rex Mundi either created the physical world or somehow captured it from the true God. To this line of thought, Rex Mundi also corrupted the church and worship of the true God, leading much of the church astray with physical power, wealth and temptation in this life. As you can imagine, there was a significant theological disagreement between the Cathars and the Catholics. This conflict eventually boiled into the Albigensian Crusade, wherein the Catholics wiped out the Cathars. Cathars believed that Satan had tricked a number of angels into falling from heaven and then encased them in bodies. The purpose of life was to renounce the pleasures and enticements of the world, and through repeated incarnations make one's way back to heaven. To this end, the Cathars observed a strict hierarchy of 3 stages, 3 groups. First one called perfecti, those who had renounced the world were priests and bishops. Credentes, believers who still interacted with the world but worked toward renunciation. And the third group, sympathizers, non-believers who aided and supported Cathar movements. Cathars rejected the teaching of the Catholic Church as immoral, and most of the books of the Bible as inspired by Satan. They criticized the church heavily for the hypocrisy, greed, and lechery of its clergy, and the church's acquisition of land and wealth. Not surprisingly, the Cathars were condemned as heretical by the Catholic Church and was massacred in the Crusades between 1209 and 1229, which also devastated the towns, cities, and cultures of southern France. Now, it's disputed if the Cathars ever existed. But nevertheless, the concept is interesting. The fight between the flesh and the spirit, between the dark and the light, and the evil and the good, so to say, symbolically. There is signs in the nature of something that can be quite terrifying. That the larger creature, the more you kill the smaller creatures. And if we see it as a reincarnation stages, we can see the smaller birds, they want to act like the big birds. Like they dream to become that brutal killer who has freedom to rule all the others. And that tendency, it runs all through nature. So if one is to believe in this philosophy of the Cathars, I would say there is proof, there is evidence that this can be true. That there is an evil entity, something has been called the devil, or the beast, or the Fenrir, wolf, as we call it in the Norse tradition. We portray it as a wolf, a beast, that eventually go to war against the holy powers, the gods. And these sacred powers and energies of nature ultimately get defeated by the wolf, by the materia. It can also be seen as the history of the world's material creation and destruction. In the myth with Thor is a name for electromagnetical energy, and electromagnetic energy comes from the core of the earth, and that's why we say Thor's mother is Earth, and also that's why we say Mother Earth, because she's Thor's mother. And out of electromagnetic energy comes many things, which I will speak about in another video, because that subject alone is vast. Alright, you have many different electromagnetic energies, harmful, building, creating. And that force can be both destructive and good. Mainly we use it, the T form of Thor's hammer sign. That is an ancient structure going way back in Northern European history. The megalithic structures are often made as a T, because this was the most suitable form for reaching the spiritual world through the electromagnetic energy and through the grid system. So that's why the T form came. And then that became the symbol of heathenry. Because heathenry was all pre-Christian knowledge. Because after the false Christianity, the Catholic came, all true knowledge was destroyed. And we know now from archaeology, mathematics, geophysics that the forebears, the ancestors, were masters, science masters that knew the science of life and energy and purpose. So basically all higher knowledge is heathen. And I mean even mathematics, physics, or all what they teach in university and school. That is heathen. That comes from the heathen. But then this Catholic Church, they wanted to smear and destroy the reputation and the name of the ancient culture in native indigenous Europe, because it was a fascist and oppressive culture, the Catholic Church. And that the Catholic Church is also a subject for itself. But I'm not an historian. I study my people's history, so that's mainly my views are from our side, from my side. And the evil god, the Rex Mundi, the sacrificed god of flesh, came to our regions, and we were free. There we worshipped the Vanir gods, the fertility, life-giving nature gods. Which lived in perfect harmony and peace. And then we had the war gods, the gods of order. But the war gods was more brutal, and that shift, it can also be seen like a marriage between those, an amalgam between the forceful flesh religion, and that's where you see blood sacrifice in that, the new religion. And in the old religion is a magic connection with nature religion. But obviously the terms of the world, it don't let you live in a complete peace, in the dream time, in the saga ages. The world is demanding, and if you can't defend yourself and act on the terms of the world, you get wiped out. So we can't live in that complete hippie-like liberated state. We're a natural creature, and we act like any race, any species in nature, on instinct. It can't work. But we keep that sweet part of our heritage in our hearts, and there is a certain kind of softness, almost naive. They made the word blue-eyed, that if you're blue-eyed, you're easy to fool. And yeah, blue-eyed maybe are easy to fool because they are used to trust each other in indigenous tribes that's been living together as families for thousands of years. So they didn't know the concept of treachery. They didn't know the concept of lies. and manipulation, self-interest, and of course self-interest, that they had that. Obviously, they were warriors. They were fighting for honor and glory and for tribe, but maybe that was holy for them too. They didn't see it as something evil like we do in this time, when most people fight wars for great, huge societies which they have no control over or knowledge about. But in those days, you fought for family, with your grandfather, and everybody was together. Maybe it was a complete holy thing for them. We don't know. But we know that, or I know, or I think that if there is an evil entity that ruled the world, ruled the flesh, our job is to defeat this entity. And when we do that, we complete a soul cycle, and we are liberated, and we reach to the eternal life, into the higher forces. So this is the mission. And we don't defeat evil by defeating evil in the world, external evil. We fight the evil in ourselves, and we change ourselves and remove our lower behavior, our animalistic behavior, our physical flesh and lust behavior, and so we attain liberation. So that's the message for today. And keep fighting yourself, you know. Raise the score. Have a wonderful day. Bless.